Way? 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 Where's my fisherman's cap? Guess we'll have to do without that. But look what I do have. I've got her. I got this in South Padre Island, Texas, on spring break in 1993. When Koresh was in Waco, I was down there. Not in Waco. I was on vacation. But I was like, where the hell did she go? And I found her. She was lying. She was standing there. She was standing there, which is what made it difficult for me to find her, because I'm used to her lying down. But I guess, just like every fisherman, every girl in port needs a break too. So I didn't recognize her when she was standing up. But I'm here to talk about something, and it's, we pulled into the docks in Kodiak City, in Kodiak Island, Alaska, to sell the fish that we'd made on the way up through inland waters and the Barren, I don't know where that Point Barrow or something. You ask D-Day, he can tell you everywhere we were, because I saved his life on the thing. Now I'm responsible for it. I can't even take care of myself. I've always relied on the kindness of strangers. So we pulled in to sell the fish, and the guy standing there, he says, hey, where are you guys going next? As he was mooring our boat on the docks. And I said, skipper says we're going to the Bering Straits. He looked at the boat we were on, which we'd already run into Vancouver Island on, and had dye on us out in the middle of the ocean, and went through storms and shit. And I guess I gotta drive. He looked at the boat and he says, get off this boat. You will die. And I used part of that quote once in my life later on when I told a guy, you try anything with me and I'll kill you. It's close, right? Oh, it gets the point across is what I'm saying. And I looked, he said, get off this boat, you will die. And I said, that's all I needed to hear. I basically threw my boat off onto my bag off onto the docks. I sold my rig work out to people that did that sort of thing that were in town. And I went to the homeless shelter. So this fucker, I've had enough of him already. He's going to get us all killed. You got to know when to hold 'em, when to hold 'em, when to fool 'em, when to fool 'em, know when to walk away, and know when to get the fuck out of there. Kenny Rogers on that boat. It was like, you know, in the movie True Romance, that Quentin Tarantino one with that one guy that looks like Jack Nicholson, the young kid. He had Elvis over there. I guess I had Kenny Rogers with me telling me what to do. I could go on and on and on. I'm going to have to stop it there and move on. So I went to the Brother Francis homeless shelter because I had no place to stay. I was a fisherman at that point with a bad fucking haul. It was the skipper's fault. He put us down. All we pulled up was rockfish and lingcod. And saving lives. Why would I save that life if I can't eat it? You know, normally you're trying to catch a fish before it gets over the edge of the boat because everything you pulled up was crap. There's a halibut. You get one of those on you at 300 pounds, you get a sense of what it's like to be in love. And I got a job at the cannery. Whole other stories about that. But the point is, we didn't have to work every day in the cannery. There was like a Saturday or Sunday you might get off. I don't know, we were working like 16-hour, 18-hour days, but they gave you breaks. But there were the days when you just didn't work. And if you're in the shelter saving money from your check to get a goddamn plane ticket back to the contiguous United States so you can hitchhike back to Michigan, whatever it takes, well, we'd have days off. And you'd go to, it might be raining, not always, but it seemed like all the days off it was raining. And you go to the library and look at all the bums, the other guys that were in the shelter with you that just weren't working anyway. You'd see them because you can't stay in the shelter during the day. You don't have to go home if you don't have one, but you can't stay here. And we're running a business here. So these guys would go to the library and I'd walk in there and I'm like, you fuckers, you know, it seemed like a dream come true to me to be surrounded by all this knowledge. And they go in there so they can crash out on the table and do nothing. Like, you don't have to be paid well to be educated. Remember that. And the more educated you are, the more easy it is to accept not being paid well. Somewhere in there a philosophy takes place. But so you go there and you think, I could be the smartest man in the world. Other days you go out and you just sit on the fucking bench and look at the crows. And they're preening each other and you're watching them and you're realizing those are intelligent creatures. Before you ever had your intellect classes in psychologies and things like that where they talk about animals, octopi are very fucking intelligent. Crows are very intelligent. I didn't know it, but I realized it at that moment, sitting on a park bench, homeless, watching them clean each other, thinking, gosh, I wish I had somebody to pick fucking ticks off of my neck, something like that. And you realize that's got to have something to do with intelligence, and then you find out it does. So even outside of the library where everybody's sleeping and sucking up all the knowledge in their dreams, you can sit out in the park and get educated somehow. And then another day, it was raining and cold, and I'm like, well, fuck it, I'm going to the movies. Went to the movies. That theater had The Dragon, the Bruce Lee story on it with Jason Lee, which is an interesting thing. Zai Zhonghua with a Mingzi Shi Li. Li Jia. The name they gave me when I lived in China, the family name Li, and then Jia, those two words don't stand apart, but what it means is, believe it or not, it means this person gave me this name. I was embarrassed to even tell people what my name was in China, because once you get given a name, it's your name. I was embarrassed. How can I tell people I am charismatic and admirable? Admirable and charismatic is the way it came across. What's that got to do with me? But I like Bruce Lee. Why do I like Bruce Lee? Because he speaks about speed, he talks about weight, he talks about physics, he talks about philosophy. He was born the same day as me. He was eating Thanksgiving dinner in 1969, the day I was born. And so was Jimi Hendrix, and he was in another house. They were both celebrating their birthday that day, on the day of my birth. There. I've had a thing for Bruce Lee for a long time. I like him. And so, like, when I saw that movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Tarantino, I was satisfied because before that I'd seen a short clip that was taken out of that movie that I didn't know was out of that movie. And there's Brad Pitt beating up Bruce Lee. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I don't like it. Not one bit. And see, immediately I was offended because I like Bruce Lee, but I had to back it off. I had to say, there's something more to this. And then I watched the movie and I get it. And then it plays it out really well. It's very cool. But you have to be open to the coolness to get beyond the hate. And that's what it is. And so I watched this movie in Alaska on Kodiak Island in Kodiak City, and I just loved it. I did. And there's a part in the movie where he breaks his back, and his wife, Linda, she's like, I'm tired of you complaining. Here, she comes in the hospital and says, we're going to do this. And she writes his book, his philosophy about fighting and life. And it's called Jeet Kune Do. I call it Jeet Kune Do. But he is speaking more Taiwanese, more Cantonese, so it's probably Jeet Kune Do. He's correct and proper. I can't correct even a dead Bruce Lee. But they wrote this book together, and then he came out and he beat people up, and then one guy said, you fucked up my brother. He can't walk right. He can't talk right. You have offended my family and the Shaolin Temple. I lived an hour from the Shaolin Temple, never made it there because, well, just like going to the Confucius Temple, it's a tourist trap now. That's the way I see it. In the places I've been that I've never heard of before, and that you have probably never heard of before, you won't hear it from me because I don't want to fuck it up. There's still something pure out there, out in the Midlands. I suppose, outlands. But then, at one point, some years later, I was on a train on the Amtrak Zephyr, the California Zephyr, I believe it's called. It's coming across the United States. It goes up into Canada a little bit and comes back down. But that's the way. And there's a smoking car on it. And the interesting thing on the train is all the other cars have little windows you could open if you want. But the smoking car has no open windows. You can't let it breathe. There's no air flow. There are no windows. So you're sitting in there like you're in a damn smoke aquarium. You know, just like being what it was in San Francisco Airport used to have what I call a smoke aquarium. It's a room. It's glass walls, and you can go in there and smoke. But as you walk up to go into the smoking room at the airport, it's just like a bunch of people in watery smoke. You know, it's so packed with it. And that's what this train car was on the Amtrak, the smoking car. And I think I spoke to everybody on that train that smoked over the 3 to 4 days that I took across the country, because I was in the train car at least 24 hours at once, at one time. And people come, they go, and I'm just like, I'm just going to sit here and smoke. I smoked like 4 packs of fucking Pall Mall in a couple of days. I don't know. Same filtro. No filter. It's It's roasted, the tobacco. Vicente. In this sign, victory. Insigno Vicente. Pall Mall means smoke room, wherever particular people congregate. And I sat down and I smoked cigarettes in there for the whole trip, as far as I could tell from when I was awake. And there was a dude I ran across. One time I talked to all these people. I talked to this one woman who said she worked on a turkey farm. And out of nowhere, she just started telling me all this. And she said her job was to suck the turkey sperm so they could breed the turkeys. I don't know if that's one of those moments you're supposed to regret in life where you're like, maybe I should have said something. I don't know if she was coming on to me telling me her skills and looking for a new job. I don't know. It never occurred to me. I just thought it was really strange that this woman was sucking off turkeys. And I was born on Thanksgiving Day. Never made the connection. But this one dude came in. And he said he'd gotten off the train with a couple other guys at one of these stops. And he said, and he was of Mexican descent. So he wasn't just some white dude cruising across the middle of the country. This is the problem that people don't understand. If you can't hide in a crowd, then you are forever judged. People that do not look like you in your country, everywhere they go, like being in China. Oh, Hangawa! You can't even pick your nose and walk down the street. You can't fart. You can't shit in the damn gutter. Everybody's looking at you. And this is what it is to be in America and traveling free. You think we've reached a point, they say make America great again, like by making it more bigoted. We're still sitting right there on the fucking fence. Haven't made it over it. What do you mean, make it great again? You're showing us your ass. But this guy, he was talking about how he'd gotten off at a stop. They had a stop. And they went into the bar. And he started talking about how he's like, he and the guys he was with, they were like, ooh. And people started looking at him funny. And he's like, ooh. So we need to get back on the train. There was more of the story that I'm not going to get into. I don't remember it properly. I don't want to get it wrong. But he said we were about to disappear. And when he said that, I remembered what it was like when I was in the Ukraine and they had us in custody and nobody knew where we were. There was no money trail. They could have just made us disappear. And I explained that experience to him. And he'd already found out that, well, I was born the same day as Bruce Lee. I don't know how that comes up. But he said, wait here. He said, wait here. And I said, okay. So what I do? I just lit up another cigarette. And came close to levitating in the tendrils of smoky water. You could probably call short story something like that. The tendrils of smoky water. Go ahead, write it. See how it goes. Send it to me. I haven't been into my Facebook account ever because I don't know how this shit works. Somebody's probably trying to tell me something. I probably should have been on the road weeks ago because they're getting close. I don't know. And he came back. And he gave me this book. He came back and he offered it to me. He said, here. I said, what in the hell? he said it was hard to get a hold of anymore. He said he wanted me to have it. He said, read it. He said, if you never use it, send it back. And he gave me an address to where I could send it back to him. Of course, I've lost that address, and I don't know who he was. But he was somebody who felt like he needed to give me a gift. And I appreciate that highly. This is a gift that always reminds me that we can always just disappear. But if you do it right, they'll never forget you. You want to know the point? Why I appreciate it even more now? It's this. Since this Tarantino Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out and I saw it, and more things started coming up from the Dragon movie that I saw in Alaska in 1993, all by myself in a theater on a cold, rainy day. Just sitting there in love, not with myself, but with everything. And nothing could hurt me. Another thing came up, and it said, look at this. I watched that movie again. And in 1972, his wife Linda, that woman that was banging Jim Carrey for a while, she was a beautiful woman, did a great job in that role. She wrote, everything about that is true and nothing negates anything else. She came in when she made him write that book, and she says, here. She said, there it is. He's still in his hospital bed, and he's convalescing. He's getting better. But she brought this very book out. She took it out. It. And she put it on his bed, and then she turned it over and showed the back. This is the very version that was in that movie. And I said, holy cow. I've got something that's worth more than somebody would pay me for it. That's how things work generally. You don't keep a bunch of stuff that's worthless. But I looked into it a little bit more, and Bruce Lee died in 1972. I was like, oh, that's terrible. And something made me question it. And I opened it up, and I see in here, copyright 1975, Linda Lee, all rights reserved. This book was copyrighted in 1975, which says to me that it was never published until 2 to 3 years after his death. Once again, I feel sorrow. All the things I want to believe, there's always something else that can stand against them. Not always. There's always something that can stand against them. But many times we can look at the truths that are there, and we can find out what the reality we want to believe in is. See that? See me? See how I did that? I see a flaw, and I have to live by it. There are some of us who seek the truth. You accept what comes with it. But without the truth, if you just get what you wanted, then it will never be fulfilling. It will never reach its spiritual height. Without the truth, there is no God, right? And so I say, jikundo. There are some of us who seek the truth. Pay attention to what's being said and give our words a chance.